universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth and freedom,
justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community, unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. And now, let us greet each other on Sundays as part of our liturgy. Even in this space, we turn to our neighbor, whether they're strangers or old friends. We welcome them. You're welcoming them. You're welcoming them. All right.
All right, friends. So I know, I like this part too. I honestly think we should just serve coffee and do this all morning. My reflection on the world today, we usually take a moment. My reflection is let's not take a moment. Let's just let it be, just for right now. Those of you who are sitting far, you really may want to come in. It will be easier to hear. And so let's just take this chance. It is so rare. I don't know if it's just me. I know I'm a parent of a child who lives at home, but quiet is not usually part of my world. And so for me, this moment of the chime and the quiet is precious. Let's lean into it.
As we settle into this moment of quiet contemplation, let us bring ease to our hearts and minds and pray together. To the divine center within each of us, the peace of life that we share with all creation, we lift our countenance in this place. Comfort us. To you that is the breath that animates the body, the breath we share that all that lives and breathes, we humble ourselves. Those who are gone from this world still live in you through you in us. By this we know our interconnectedness, our inherent, infinite worth. Through you we know we are loved, now and forever. Hold us here in this space, deepening our presence, our connection, and our hope. Light bringer, pain bearer, source of all that is holy. We know that we do not always live up to our potential. Comfort us. We make mistakes. We hurt ourselves and we hurt others. We miss opportunities to grow and show our love. Forgive us these mistakes, these accidents, and hold our shame and guilt for us, because shame and guilt do not serve us. Bring us ease, so that we might know our presence is recognized, appreciated, and valued. Forgive those who harm us, for they know not our holiness, our dignity. In this space, mend our hearts so we might love ourselves and each other more fully, and be loved so in return. Earth shaper, body healer, we come to you today, both whole and enough, and yet not fully healed. Comfort us. We bring real bodies that hurt, that suffer loneliness and isolation. Sanctify in this moment all of our blood and bones, our skin and hair, our whole selves, even our toes, that we might share in this blessed beauty, the fullness of all we are. Do not take away our scars, for they remind us of our strength. Do not take away the thorn, for it reminds us of our presence. Be the healing so needed in our community, our city, the healing so needed in our country, our world, that we might one day know a peace that passes all understanding. Truth teller, ancient parent of life, comfort us. We grieve those who have gone before us and feel now our fragile humanity. We ask now that you send down your healing mercies to we who suffer, and through us, ease the sufferings of those we care for. We lift now the names of those in our community aloud and on our hearts that we ask you to remember. Today we remember in particular Sandy, David, Joel, Ellen, Malika, Adrian, Sheila, Lisa, Rose, David, Nina, Anthony, Mike, Stephen, Marianne, Carrie, and Dorothy. Wellspring of wisdom, fountain of blessings, as you have blessed the creatures of the sea and sky and earth, bless us now, your human children, that we might do your healing work in the world. Make us signs of your blessings, so all the world through us might know your presence. May it be so. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me in the far reaches of the chapel? You can, excellent. Return again to who you are. Who are we? I came into this year thinking I was so out of sorts with my cycles of life. Pandemic hit 4 years ago now or so, and I just got into a rhythm that worked for the time there, and it wasn't working for me now. So I'm trying out a new rhythm this year, and I'm looking at what if I went back to what the earth teaches us in this big city, in this planet we're on. And maybe that is where I came from. That's what I'm returning to. And one of the first exercises, a few of you took part in it with me. We just finished reading Braiding Sweetgrass, a group of us for our small groups. And it's taught by an indigenous author that Kimmerer is teaching us about the wondrous life of plants and how, from her indigenous community, the plants themselves are showing you a life where you're interdependent, where you're symbiotic, where your life is reciprocal with one another. She talks about three sisters, and she goes in for a whole chapter, and I'm not going to do that in the lengthy bit, but the short bit might remind you, for those of you that are not born as only children, but you have siblings, She talks about the order in which these plants are born. First sister, the oldest sister, corn, kind of comes out of the field real quickly and is the first up. And then other plants follow. And she talks about squash and beans. And what matters about the longer story is that in indigenous culture, the earth, these plants are teaching us that we can be interdependent with one another. In fact, we thrive when we're in relation with one another, when there's a trust between one another. And you have this tall corn. And some of us are, at times in our life, very tall. And their beans kind of grow up and around that strength with adaptation. And the squash kind of straggles along the bottom, but keeps out the weeds and the bugs so that the three thrive. And it didn't start there. It didn't stop there for me this year. I got in a habit of reading about mushrooms and fungus, and you don't know how much you need fungus in your life until you say, I'm going to start paying attention to mushrooms and fungus. I was just watching a documentary, and it was about something utterly unrelated about the moon. But there's a moment where the scientist stops and says, but for the scum of the earth, we are alive. And he's talking about evolution, science, right? And that how through some happenstance, through all the billions of ways it could happen, scum developed and created the chemistry of the earth we have. And it didn't stop with scum. If you are relating to scum, know that that's okay, because that's life-giving. And some of us are dwelling in that right now. Right? And that is life-giving. And then one more fungus found its way into my life, mycelium. And some of you have heard about this in general, right? Some of you have heard about this because I was reading a reading at the church council on Tuesday. And it was, your minister's bringing mycelium, mushrooms, into your church business. What is going on there? And this reading was, and I'm not going to quote it because it's too long and too many big words for me to do here. But the reading was from Adaku, Utah, who's a 6th generation Igbo healer. And they were talking about mycelium and how all these things are growing in the earth unseen by us. And all these things are connecting other species, other plants to each other and to nutrition under the earth. They're not even the same species. And they exist because of each other. And what does that teach us today about trust, about comfort, about New York City? Who here grows all their food, right? I trust, I have faith that I will be able to go to that Starbucks before this service and get the adequate amount of caffeine and carbohydrates that I am both up and I am not down, right? And that's trust. I can't make that happen without them at that time. And I grow plants at home, but I don't grow all my food. We, as people in an urban setting, exist, and a suburban, exist and live and thrive on our trust in all the parts of our biome that make getting together in this corner on a Sunday afternoon to hear a good word even possible. And with that, I invite you to remain seated and join us in singing Meditation on Breathing, hymn number 1009 in the Teal hymnal.
So there are many ways to be a part of this community, many ways to explore, to rest, to be filled. We don't announce all the things happening on Sundays, but you can find a complete list on our website or on the flyer in the vestibule. Reverend Jude is leading a 4-part discussion called The Living Tradition, Keeping Faith Alive. Together, this group will look at our shared values and how we express them in our denomination. These discussions will take place on Zoom on Thursday afternoons once a month. Please see Reverend Jude for more information. News, we've launched a new digital directory. If you are a voting member, you've gotten a link to an invitation. Please click and check it out. Our ushers are going to pass a plate for donations. We are very grateful for your presence here, for your willingness to be part of building this world we dream about, and we are always grateful for your financial support. Thank you for being with us today.
When we first embarked on this complicated and difficult move, right? We sold our buildings. We have nowhere to go for something like 3 years and really no idea where we'd land or when. I used the metaphor of the Israelites in the desert. Do you remember? I actually did it a few times. I kept saying, we're going to be wandering in the desert for a while. The people left something that was familiar, that might have felt safe in some ways. It's where their parents and grandparents had lived. It's where they were raising their children. Even as they knew that they needed to leave, it was frightening. Right? They set out into the desert and they wandered as nomads for 40 years, a generation. They had food and water, but they didn't have a home. In the spring of 2022, so it's 2 years ago next month, we left our home and we came here to begin our wandering. And at the time, I said we might feel lost or untethered. But this church isn't about a building and we would survive it. And we have and we will. But we too left something that was familiar, that we loved, and certainly that felt safe, even if it wasn't serving us well. And we too are wandering in the desert untethered. In these last few weeks, I think the wandering has started to get to us. I have heard or I've been in conversations where people are disengaged or overwhelmed. There's this sort of awkwardness and itchiness, a dissatisfaction, discomfort, lack of generosity, a feeling of disconnection, maybe even blame coming from and heading toward all the corners of the church. I mean, you know me, right? I don't pretend things aren't happening. It's not who I am. At the same time, I don't want to exaggerate it. I've also seen joy, witnessed authentic care for one another. I've even heard reports of inspiration. The story of the wandering Israelites, though, keeps coming back for me. Because as they were wandering, the people were struggling. At some point, Moses took some time away, and the restlessness got the better of them. Right? The people went to Aaron and told them that they had had enough. They didn't want to wander. They weren't sure this God was really leading them anywhere they wanted to go. Maybe this God did not really have their backs. They wanted to do things a new way. They were done. Aaron, who I'm sure was pretty exhausted, said, "Fine, bring me all your gold." I have to say, he said, bring all the gold earrings, all the, your wives and your daughters and your sons and your fathers, tell them to bring their gold earrings. I always have this question, like, where did they get the gold earrings? But whatever, they apparently had enough gold earrings. They brought the gold earrings and he melted them down. And he said, "I will make for you a new God," which he did. He created a golden calf and the people decided to follow this God instead. So we can talk about the theology of that at some time, but I'm really fascinated by the very human experience of a people wandering. I mean, it feels like they gave up. They got that far, right? They escaped slavery, they found food, they had the miracle of water, they were alive and well and free, and then they gave up. They started saying no. It's like Aaron, they were done. So this might feel like a leap to you, but I see this connection really clearly. I also see the same pattern in our country. Last week, I was listening to a journalist who was interviewing black voters. And so many of them are voting for Trump this year, or at least considering it, dramatically shifting numbers and demographics from 4 years ago. So the journalist was trying to figure out why and what was going on, and was interviewing this man, and the man said he'd never voted Republican before. He'd actively supported Biden last time, but he was done, he said. He was done with broken promises. And the journalist is trying to figure out what that means, and at some point he says, "Well, but under Biden, unemployment is at an all-time low." And the guy said, "Sure, I've got a job, but I haven't had a raise in 10 years. It's enough." I hear that same exhaustion. I'm hearing it over in so many places, that feeling of like, I can't anymore. I can't. I was thinking about Biden's age, which has come up lately, and it feels a little bit like a mirror for American democracy. Like maybe we're getting tired. Maybe we're fraying. We're forgetting where we came from. We're getting tired. I think some might even see American democracy as over. It's time to move on to something else. Maybe try autocracy for a little while. See if things get better. Or worse, I'm so tired, so overworked, just trying to stay afloat. I don't have time to care. Again, we see the disengagement. The I can't. We can't. It's too much. I love the story that Reverend Jude told. At the core, both in the church and in the country, there's this need for trust, for interconnection, interdependence, a network of trust. It's frayed, although far more out there than in here. But even in here, when people start to get grouchy, get critical, lose faith, disengage, we see trust breaking and broken. Both out there and in here, though, we can't move forward. We don't survive if we aren't working together. I know that we don't always work well together if it feels like we're not being heard, if saying yes means all the work is on us, which leads to resentment and exhaustion. I see that out here and out there and in here. I hear people saying, I'm 3 paychecks away from being homeless. Or, I can't have children because I can't afford to live anywhere other than a 1-room apartment. Or, my mother needs more care than I can give her, but I can't afford the help. Or, hundreds of thousands of people are living on the street, and I feel breathless just thinking about how we'll ever address that crisis. Or, the schools have no resources to feed my child, to address my child's needs because they are overworked and underfunded. And why is my money going to help the Israeli government kill Palestinian children? I can't do it anymore. These are the details of people's lives, and the list of problems only gets longer, and the more it goes on, the angrier and more disengaged we all become. Everything just feels so hard. And then you come to church and there's no building, no center that feels like home. And people just want things from you, even if it's just your attention, and it's too much. So I made soup. I spent Saturday making you soup. Soup is not going to fix any of this, but I made it anyway. I'm Jewish and Italian, right? I make soup. It's what I do. I don't know what else to do. I gather people into small groups and I make them soup. I wish we could eat it together. I wish we had a long table and everyone could get a bowl and fill it with something hot and we could share a meal together. I promise I would do the dishes. But not being able to make it perfect didn't deter me from doing what I could. Soup may or may not feel healing to you, but I hope you're able to accept the gift as an act of care and comfort. It was healing to make it. I connected with that part of me that wants to take care of you. There is a part of me that does always love you. And I know that putting love at the center is always the right thing to do. I wanted us to be squished in here together. Instead of being in that vast space that feels so cold and hard, I wanted us to feel warmer and softer and closer to each other. I wanted us to remember the connections, lean into interdependence, remember that we are in this together. I went back into some old sermons from 2 years ago. I figured we made this move 2 years ago. What did I say then? I wanted to know actually how often did I really tell that story of the wandering in the desert? And a few times. I reminded us that without a home, meeting largely on Zoom, we could feel disconnected. I anticipated we were going to feel disconnected from each other. We could become accusatory, feel alienated, forget ourselves in 1,000 ways. I'm going to quote myself here. This is from the sermon I preached the first time we were in this building. I said, there's a line in Christian scripture in one of Paul's letters to the Corinthians which says, if I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong of a clanging cymbal. I am heeding this ancient wisdom today, asking myself if what I do is in the name of love. Am I grounding my actions? Am I starting my words? Am I sending my thoughts through a filter of love? I wrote, these next few weeks, these next few years might feel challenging if we speak poorly of each other, if our expectations are sparked by entitlement, if we forget our theology of welcome. We have walked away from love and from one of our core values. Alternatively, this next phase of community church history could be the time to live into our spirit of theology, to embody love fiercely. If we aren't ministering to our buildings, we can minister to each other and to this hurting, broken world that so desperately needs our message of radical inclusivity. We are who we've always been, nonconformists, breaking new theological ground, bringing love to the streets. That's who we were, that's who we will always be. That's what I said when we were starting this journey. I continue to believe it's who we were and who we are. And I don't know what's going to happen in the nation this year, but I have faith in us. In 1 year, I believe we will be in a new building. I am working very, very hard to make it happen. As much as I think that will ease the tension, we have to stay true to ourselves now so that when we arrive, we are still us. Over this next year, let's try to remember a few things in response both to what's out there and what's in here. We are love. Change is uncomfortable and sometimes very sad. Some of what's happening is frightening or disconcerting. But we are love. We are the embodiment of the spirit of love. We can make choices that increase love. We can make choices that demonstrate trust. We can reach out to each other in tenderness and care, in gratitude and honesty, and we can find that we too are better for it when we do. We can build into our system an expectation of softness and comfort. Even if only this next year, when our country will be in disarray, this year, when our congregation will still be without a home, we can be intentional about seeing each other, responding to each other in gentleness. We can, for now, for today, for this week, for this month, for the time we each have left, we can see and know that putting love at the center means we are all each the same, grounded and surrounded, and the embodiment of one great love. The one that holds us all together, that breathes in and through us. Wandering, anxious, disengaged, critical, we can let it all go and reconnect with our source. We are, you are, we are each and every one the body of love. You can stay seated, but let's sing together number 1001, Breaths. So I'm serious about the soup. Take soup. There's vegetable soup, it's vegan. Butternut squash, it's vegetarian, a little cream in it. And I'm not bringing it home, so take it with you. In your program is our chalice extinguishing, if you would read it with me. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and make care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out everywhere into the world. Our light goes out everywhere, healing and hope are needed. Let us go in peace to love and serve the world and one another. It's good to be with you. Let's not recess out. Let's hang out here. Can you all rise in body or spirit for the closing